Hey guys, I got to tell you, Paul and Virginia Friesen have been married almost 50 years. Today, we're going to talk about ways to build a strong marriage and actual boots on the ground applications. Hey, let's jump into this thing. So, Virginia, if you could say anything to husbands, what would you say to the husbands? What have you noticed in Paul or other men that you've helped counsel? What would you say?
So I would say to husbands, what I hear the most in the office from women is that they feel that they are unimportant, unappreciated, that their husbands take them for granted, that they know the stats for every football team that they follow or the NBA finals or whatever's going on. They're totally into that. Or if they're not into that, they're into their golf game or they're into something that really consumes them except her. And she sort of feels like he caught her, he sealed it with a ring, and then he's sort of gone about doing what he wants to do to advance his career or to fulfill his dreams and hobbies. So I would say to men that loving her means knowing her and then acting on that knowledge. So it's a very active form of love, and it sort of leaves selfishness behind because Jesus is the model for husbands loving their wives. So I always say you don't have to look any farther than Jesus to know how to love her. Be in the Gospels, be in the Word, be a man that's growing in Christ likeness, and you will probably not fail as a husband.
You know, it's interesting. One of the things we often ask couples on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you today in your marriage? And one of the things that seems to happen is the man has a bit higher number than the woman. And for him, she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's taking care of the kids. And if he's lucky, they're having enough sex. But for her, they're not connecting verbally. He's not, asking her how her day was. He's not taking, her interest into his. And so it's this lopsided thing. He says, "Oh, things are fine." And she's saying, "But we don't spend any time together. You don't ask me how I'm doing." So I agree completely. I think for us as men, we need to come home. I had a 70-year-old man once when I told him this. He said, "Well, what should I do?" And I said, "When you walk in the door, say to your wife, 'How are you? Is there anything I can do to help?'" And he said, "Could you write that down?" And so I could put it on a sticky note. And I think, come on, it's not that hard. But I think we as men need to just invest in our wives. I think we do a deal with couples where we give the wives pink cards and the men blue cards. And we say, "Wives, finish the sentence. I feel loved by my husband when." And to the men, "I feel respected by my wife when." We've done it with over 1,000 couples. We have never had a difficult answer. All of them are when he listens to me, when we take a walk together, when he doesn't, and he says, when she appreciates me, when she doesn't override me. I mean, they're all relatively easy things. Nobody's asking about going to Tahiti, getting the big diamond, or having sex 5 times a day. They're reasonable things, but difficult if we are not intentional.
Chapter 6 is be intentional about pursuing one another. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, Gary Chapman in the book Five Love Languages, made this pretty much known all over the world. And it's very simple, but it really is talking about knowing your spouse and then loving them in a way that they receive that well. And I think he said it great, but at the bottom line of that comes out of selfishness again. For instance, I'm actually bilingual. I have physical touch and words of affirmation.
Physical touch. All you guys, everybody says that. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Virginia's acts of service. And so, very rarely during our marriage, I'll say, "Do you love me?" And she'll say, "Do I love you? Look what I did for you today." And then she lists all the ways she loved me. But I said, "But you didn't tell me how terrific I am and how, you didn't give me a hug." And then the other is when she comes home, I'll just hug her and tell her how beautiful she is and she's the best thing. And she's thinking, if you love me, do the dishes, do something practical. And I think we often miss each other because we try to love the person in the way that we want to be loved.
But I will say this, once you understand the concept, everybody should become bilingual. Speaking in my natural tongue, which is through acts of service, that comes naturally. I think Paul has learned that when I do acts of service, I really am expressing love to him. But I can't stop there because his native tongue is words of affirmation and physical touch. So that's been a growing edge for me to make sure I'm sort of more of the line that if you did a great job, it speaks for itself. So why would I have to bring a brass band in? But I learned that Paul loves brass bands. He wants me to notice what he's done, and he wants me to talk about it. And actually, I am naturally kind of an encourager, so that doesn't come as difficult for me as physical touch does. I'm not naturally a physical touch person, so that's been a growing edge for me. It's not enough for me to say, listen, just learn my language and understand that I love you. In a true marriage that's God-honoring and growing in Christ-likeness, I am working to love Paul as to the very, very best that I possibly can. Not make him always come my way, but I need to be really willing to sacrifice and learn how to love him in the way he most feels loved.
Let's talk about chapter 2. So you can unpack this realistic expectations chapter.
We think that this is sort of at the epicenter of either great marital conflict or great marital delight. Because we all come into marriage with expectations, and some of them we're very aware of. And so they're realistic. They're attached to what we actually know. There are so many more, though, that are subconscious and they don't emerge until something triggers them. And all of a sudden, you're looking at your spouse like, you do that? Or why do you do that way? I never saw that coming. So I often use the illustration, having been raised in a Christian home, I had a really strong, godly father who set the bar for me. He was a naval admiral. So
oh, wow.
Everything was in order. Let me just tell you, his clothes were never on the floor. So when we got married, I just assumed because I was marrying a godly Christian man, and it is true, Paul is a genuinely godly man, and I have the utmost respect for him. But what I was just not expecting at all was that he would consider that the floor was just an extension of the dresser and the closet, and his clothes would just land there. And I could not figure out how a godly Christian man would do that. I mean, I thought those were antithetical to each other.
That's what we all do. Yeah.
So we had more than a few encounters over that marriage. And as you said earlier, I really thought he just needed a little coaching. Somebody must have just missed that lesson when they were raising him. But he could just pick up the dropped balls and soon he would be picking up his clothes. But no, that really did not happen. So as it turned out, that was an unrealistic expectation to the degree that I thought it should be. Now, you can minimize the gap by Paul, knowing that it was important to me, has actually done a really pretty good job of picking up his clothes most of the time. And I don't make a deal about the ones that he doesn't pick up. But I will say this, I think those are stemming mostly from preferences and temperaments. Realistic expectations that we need to focus on are becoming Christ-like, being faithful to the marriage, viewing marriage as a covenant, practicing the fruit of the Spirit, doing nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but in all things consider another more important than yourself. I think those are 5 realistic expectations that every Christian marriage should strive for.
When we're talking about expectations, one of the things that we often say is your expectation and your experience, the difference of those will equal your satisfaction. So the difference between your expectations for marriage and your experience in marriage equals satisfaction. And come in with expectations, as Virginia said, often unspoken. She thought her dad fixed the cars, I could fix the cars. She found out early it cost more to have the car fixed after I worked on it than I worked on it. But one of the things that has been helpful for us is putting to death unrealistic expectations. The guy that Virginia dated before me was over 6 feet tall, a lot of hair, thin. And, when we woke up, if every day Virginia said, do you think you'll ever be taller? I mean, I always expected I'd be married to a tall man, not somebody like you. Well, that's ridiculous. And yet there are some things that Virginia will never have in me. And she has to put that to death. I will never be as orderly as she is. I'll never think systematically. And she can either harp on it every day or say, I didn't get that in this husband and I'm okay with that.